If queer is not merely an identity, but as the Mary Nardini gang point out, the qualitative position of opposition to presentations of stability and a total rejection.
Violet just defined being queer as the qualitative opposition to presentations of stability and is about to say, I think, a total rejection of something related to normativity. To be queer is opposition to the presentations of stability. What is the second goal of the woke left? Destabilize the system. I'm sorry that we're going back and listening to things a couple times, guys, but I really think that this is important because I want you to hear from their mouth what they believe, and it can get a little complicated, and sometimes it can be easy to kind of like glaze over because it's boring, but that's why we go back and we listen a couple times because I really want you guys to hear and understand it. Let's listen again.
The law, and that involves refusing to constitute one's body as a source of labor power. As Michelle pointed out earlier, all work comes with gendered expectations. If queer is not merely an identity, but as the Mary Nardini gang point out, the qualitative position of opposition to presentations of stability and a total rejection of the regime of the normal, then we can understand.
To be queer is a total rejection of the regime of the normal. Do you guys know now why when we're in like happy hour and we're watching the less advanced like woke trainings, they refuse to define the word queer? They say queer has no definition. Queer is impossible to define. No, we have just heard from the queer Marxists who have an essay in the book Transgender Marxism that to be queer is a total rejection of the regime of the normal. We got our definitions, guy. Thank you, Violet. Let's listen one more time. Just for funsies.
Pointed out earlier, all work comes with gendered expectations. If queer is not merely an identity, but as the Mary Nardini gang point out, the qualitative position of opposition to presentations of stability and a total rejection of the regime of the normal, then we can understand queer and trans fugitivity as precisely a mode of illegalist resistance that is targeted by the apparatuses of normalization. The apparatus is definitely.
Wow. And now they think they're being targeted and oppressed. Their argument is that queer people, trans people are being targeted and oppressed by the apparatuses of normalization. James Jones, looking up Violet, turned up some interesting stuff. How can I get links to you? James Jones, the very best way to send that to me is by sending it to activelyunwoke@gmail.com. I will put the email in the chat. I appreciate the super chat and I appreciate the research. Activelyunwoke@gmail.com. Guys, is this queer Marxism marathon something else or what? Thank you for spending some time with me today. Please mount that like button if you haven't already. I want to listen to this one more time, just one more time, and then I'm going to let it play until Violet says something else that's crazy. But just this is the clip that we have been waiting for, guys. This is why we watched the full 2-hour presentation from start to finish. We watch the boring bits, we watch the cringy bits, because when we land on the clip that we're looking for, we really land on the clip that we're looking for. One more time for posterity.
Rooted in a desire to do away with one's body, we wanted to suggest the inverse, that dysphoria is nothing but the howl of the body's anguish against its appropriation by sexuation and its insertion into the capitalist mode of production. In his book Spinoza, Practical Philosophy, Gilles Deleuze had described Spinoza's statement, "We do not even know what a body can do," as a war cry. For our purposes, we wanted to reframe this statement as a queer war cry. Why? Because all power at its core takes the material body as its object. In both his Punitive Society lectures and in Discipline and Punish, Foucault shows that the worker as a source of labor power doesn't exist a priori, but has to be created through a vast panoply of apparatuses that target the worker's body. An entire array of processes geared towards the production of what he calls docile bodies, that is to say, bodies that have maximum utility, minimum resistance. And docile bodies, needless to say, also imply the production of docile subjectivities. Far from being a theoretical abstraction, as many would claim, the reality of power's grip on the body is felt with an extreme intensity in the lives of trans people. From the moment we are born, the medical establishment inscribes the laws of the system onto our flesh through sexuation, a continuous surveillance that begins with the nuclear family, which through its daily punitive games of punishments and rewards ensures the moral upbringing of the child into the responsible future citizen subject, and also wards of future deviancy, continues all the way into our adult lives as we are denied jobs, healthcare, passports, friendships, even citizenships, as our bodies are made into objects of mockery, sneers, and hate from upstanding citizens, or cynically invested in by liberals who want to perpetuate the very order that kills us, or especially when our bodies become the target of the violence of the police and the murderous social order that the police protect. It would be a mistake, however, to think that the apparatus seize hold of a passive body that just lies waiting for it. In fact, the true target of the apparatus is always the body's capacity for resistance. In his Punitive Society lectures, Foucault shows that the true target of the disciplinary apparatuses was resistance on part of those who...
Hang on. Krista says, so they want to destabilize society and create chaos and then cry oppression so they can get the upper hand to continue the cycle of chaos. That way they can get more people to join their revolution. Yes, Krista, yes, that's exactly right. Except I would add one more thing to it. They want to destabilize society and create chaos and then say that capitalism is the cause of the chaos. Capitalism is the cause of the oppression. And they're destabilizing society so that they can blame capitalism on all of the problems that they themselves create so that they can get the upper hand to turn the normies against capitalism, to make the normies that don't know what's going on experience pain, experience strife, experience all the things. So they say, like, the world just isn't working. We need a new way. They're trying to rile up people against capitalism by creating as much pain as possible and saying the only fair thing to do, the only just thing to do is to get rid of capitalism. And that's when they can usher in their little Marxist utopia. That's exactly right. Exactly right. Queen Beth of the chat is joining me on the journey into transgender Marxism. Beth, you are a woman of steel, my friend. Thank you.
Refuse the wage labor regime, either through acts of explicit violence such as machine breaking, or even more dangerously, through what he refers to as an infra-legal illegalism, an illegalism that precedes the law and that involves refusing to constitute one's body as a source of labor power. As Michelle pointed out earlier, all work comes with gendered expectations. If queer is not merely an identity, but as the Mary Nardini gang point out, the qualitative position of opposition to presentations of stability and a total rejection of the regime of the normal, then we can understand queer and trans fugitivity as precisely a mode of illegalist resistance that is targeted by the apparatuses of normalization. The apparatuses definitely serve the capitalist mode of production, of this there is little doubt, but they also form the conditions for the existence of the state form.